Welcome back to the weekly Defuse. We'll be recapping all the biggest happenings of this week of Valorant and what to look for next week. We're recording this on Wednesday, April 12th. And on this week, we're recapping week 2 of the VCT Americas. A game changer's going kinda crazy. And it's me, Mario. I'm your host for this week, Galaxy from the Intake Podcast, and I'm joined by Domenic from Off the Dome. How are you?
What up? I'm doing all right. I'm a tired guy. I'm in exam season now. But you know what? Exams don't mean shit on Valorant.
Yeah, Valorant's love, Valorant's life, you know?
Yep. And that's why I'm failing my classes. But
Are you actually?
I'm passing. Mom, I'm passing. I'm passing, I swear.
Your mom's gonna watch this. It's gonna be like, what the fuck is he doing?
Not now. But
yeah, we're gonna get into a lot of juicy games happening, and we'll get into it. So we're gonna start off with the NA VCT.
Yeah, NA VCT, it's back, week 2, and it's just as good as we expected. And even better is there's a little twist in the narrative, and that is Brazil is shitting on everybody else. Has it been less than a minute since the beginning of the recording? I don't know if I can say shit. I'm gonna say it anyways. Brazil is shitting on the rest of America League. Right now we have Furia and Loud 2-0 ahead of everyone else right now. Everyone else is either 1-1, 0-2. A lot of 1-1 teams. Again, this is still early. All Brazilian teams have a win. Furia looking very solid. We already knew what Loud could do, but Furia getting a key win this week over Leviathan, which is the best Chilean team, the best South America general team. Crew has not looked that good. They're currently 0-2. Furia kind of swept them up. So did MIBR. But Leviathan has been that team, and they lost to Furia, which means that it's not a knock on Leviathan, but such a strong point for Furia. Currently the leader of the Americas. So that really shocked me this week. The matches, as we have in order, we had Cloud9 versus Loud, a banger matchup. Loud took it 2-1. Cloud9 proving that even though they're not, as strong as we thought they were going to be with that Ye and Vanity combo, now that they're gone, we now have Ruby and Jake. They're still pretty good, able to compete with Loud, a proven entity. As I said before, Furia beat Leviathan. Very interesting shake-up of events. Pretty close, the first two maps, or the first map and the last map, 13-10, 13-11. But Icebox was a bit of a sweep by Furia, which is pretty impressive. Furia, I can't speak to the ins and outs of it right now, but I think that they're just such a well-rounded team right now. Sunday, we had NRG versus Sentinels, a bit of a streamer matchup, and it ended up being a bit of a sweep. 13-2 on Icebox for NRG. Som getting it done, Crashy's getting it done. Sentinels just not playing as well as we thought they were going to be. Then we had MIBR Crew. MIBR beating Crew 2-1, as I said before. Brazil getting it done. MIBR was looking all right. This match on Crew is not as impactful as it once would have been. Crew not as strong of a competitor as they once were. Now they have Kezent. Hopefully they'll get back up to speed soon. And then finally we had 100 Thieves versus EG. 100 Thieves getting it done over EG, but EG, a lot of questions surrounding them. Are they a true contender? Or are they just kind of, wasting away in the slot? So that was this week's VCT Americas. It's looking great. Right now, Furia, Loud, key right now. But a lot of these other matchups are all kind of 1-1. So it's hard to really tell how this powerhouse is shaking, the power ranking shaking down. Next week, we have more good matches. I'm going to just pull up my graphic here. We have some banger matches next week. It's Cloud9 100 Thieves, NRG MIBR. This is on Saturday. Leviathan versus Sentinels. EG versus Crew, a bit of a toilet bowl kind of matchup. And Loud versus Furia, the two top seeds going up against each other on Monday. I'm super excited to see how this next week goes. Hopefully we'll have some more answers as to how the power ranking shakes out with some key matchups. Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves is going to be good. NRG, MIBR, going to be good. I think it's going to be a bit of a match for NRG to prove themselves that they are in that next tier and can they keep evolving. Leviathan Sentinels is going to test Sentinels to see how consistent they can be against this super consistent Leviathan team. EG versus Crew, just to see who's the worst in the conference. And finally, Loud versus Furia, the battle for number 1. So that's next week. I'm super excited. Let me know which matches you're excited for. And let's talk about it. Galaxy, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, no, these weeks of matches have been really good. The definitely biggest surprise was I knew Furia was definitely a very solid team, but I didn't expect them to be that much of a resistance against Leviathan. I mean, last week I said that Leviathan Furia was like more of a coin flip. That was more unexpected turn, but it was really interesting. I really watched that one. And Loud, I felt like Cloud9 after map 1, because map 1 they absolutely decimated Loud. But then for some reason, Loud just turned up a switch, and then map 2 and 3, they just steamrolled Cloud9, really showing that they're still that still championship 2022 champions team that they were, and they shouldn't be disrespected essentially. And then how they made it to finals and lock in, so like they're still that one championship pedigree of a team. My biggest surprise was NRG absolutely swiping the floor with Sentinels. I watched that match and it was not pretty. I mean, map 1 Lotus was really good. Was a pretty good, solid match where they went pretty close. But then Icebox, they lost 13-2. It was insane. And I know recently that Bind is now coming back into the rotation. I believe it's not this patch, it's next patch. So after the new act comes up, Bind will be officially into the rotation. So it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm not too sure if teams are like the franchising teams are switching over to Bind, or they're still sticking with Icebox until Masters. But it's gonna be interesting to see. A lot of teams do like NRG is one of those teams that really thrive on Icebox. So it's gonna be seeing them. Are they gonna add Bind back into the rotation? Are they gonna keep Bind as a permaban? So it's gonna be really interesting. And EG versus 100 Thieves. Yeah, again, what's going on in EG? They have a 10-man roster. They signed thinking that it might propel them, be ahead of the squad and ahead of franchising, but now they're down 0-2. They got destroyed by Cloud9. It wasn't even close. And then 100 Thieves, they kind of got dropped also. Bang on Icebox. Again, Bang single-handedly took out their entire squad. So it was really interesting to see the dynamic and how EG just doesn't look like they're playing together. I feel like just as a whole, I feel like just the pieces on that team was not there. And I mean, for the first time ever, I don't know if you saw, but Demon was now subbed in on Icebox. I don't know if you noticed. So he was one of the players that finally got into the team, and they subbed him out. I think they were subbed in for I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, BCJ. So BCJ was subbed out, and then for Icebox. But again, they did even worse without BCJ. So it's just like, in my thing, it's like, what are EG doing? It just feels like 2 weeks in, you're already 0-2. It's not that you're doing, it's not like, oh, it was close matches. Like, no, you're getting outplayed in every form. So it's EG as a whole is just not really doing that good right now. And it's hopefully they do turn it around, and hopefully they find that it might be a role issue. It might be not. It might just be them just kicking the bucket. It's like they're not doing well. But no, this week has been really good. I really like the matches, But that's the biggest question mark. I know George tweeted it out saying that, hey, like, maybe it might be a leadership issue, might be a coaching issue. That Potter has been on the EG squad for about 2 years now. So like, he put that into perspective. Is coaching the issue? Is the players the issue? Is management the issue? What is the issue with EG? Because I feel like, EG had that moments where, they were made a lot of run, but they have never made an international event. They've never won a trophy. So what is the issue? So it's put in perspective on what is the issue. Is Potter the issue of the coaching? But, who knows?
Yeah. No, I don't know. EG's in a very interesting space. We kind of knew this going in. And it's always easy to say one thing, being like, oh, this is going to be such an interesting thing. They're probably not going to do very well, but it's kind of the design of them. And to watching them play and watching them be dismantled, and it's like, man, maybe we should really think about if this is a good idea. A 10-man roster, a 6-man roster has never worked in any competitive tactical shooter. Many people have tried, but a 10-man is way too much to work competitively and to work at a top level. But I think that EG trying something new isn't necessarily bad, but they say any publicity is good publicity, and I don't think that's the case in this chance, especially in the state of esports where, you have to compete, because you have to either compete or have some sort of influence over the play of the game, just because it's so tough out there right now. And trying to say, hey, let's do something interesting, like having a 10-man roster, just wastes money, wastes resources, wastes these players, because they could be joining other teams, you know? We recently saw, which we'll get to later, we saw Ye join Disguised Esports, Disguised, a tier 2 team, but doesn't mean that Ye is, you know, that a bad player just because of the landscape right now. Of the franchise team, no one can fit on this all-star player, even though he's probably still the best player in the world. He has to work his way back in there. So I think right now, EG is just not in a good spot, and they need to do something.
Yeah. I mean, you could also argue that they could have picked up Ye. I mean, he would have been
dropped 6 of their players, and
he would have. To be honest, he's as good as like 4 other players. So you know, you can run a 6-man roster right there. But you know, you can also hype. You can say they could have done this different. But it's really like down to. There's a lot of question marks and not a lot of answers. So that's really the issue. But for next week, I feel like my match of the week for next week, it would be either Leviathan and Sentinels and Furia and Loud. You know, Sentinels coming off a very embarrassing loss, seeing them, hey, can you come back after an embarrassing loss? And then Leviathan. In my opinion, I still think they're one of the more complete teams in the entire VCT. So this is more of a statement question, is like, can they beat one of the better teams, aka Sentinels, in this? And also Loud and Furia, the Battle of the Brazil, the 2 top teams in the league right now, and 2 best teams in Brazil. So it's not see who is the reigning number 1 team in the entire conference. So that's going to be a really good match. And also, you know, my dishonest match of the week is Crew and Evil Geniuses. Let's see who has the bit more question marks, Crew or Evil Geniuses, you know. But yeah, no, next week should be interesting. And I think that's all I have to say for, you know, an AVCT week. You know, it's pretty good matches, but we'll see next week how it really shapes out.
Let's get into the other leagues. What are takes and thoughts on those?
So EMEA is still a little bit interesting. I would have to say. I am gonna count out and say this: Karman Corp is one of the most overrated teams in the entire VCT franchising. They have
I want to pause right there. We need a flashback from when you were all in on Karman Corp. You were like, oh my god, dude, Shin, next coming of Jesus Christ himself. Screaming Nevera, oh my god, dude.
Yes.
What happened?
What happened? I watched them play in an actual franchising league, and they have been shit in the bricks. They lost to Heretics in the most embarrassing way possible. Last round, they didn't know. Like, watching the, if you ever, I think you probably have watched this, but look at the sideshow clip. That is every single person has ever watched Heretics, and don't even get me started with Team Liquid. Oh my god, was that the most embarrassing best of 3 I've ever watched in my entire life. That wasn't like, it was like the freshman team playing against the varsity team, and the varsity team wasn't even trying. It wasn't even Liquid was playing good. Karman Corp was playing so awful and so bad to the point where they made Liquid look like prime Sentinels and champions level Loud. That's what they made them look like. And it is embarrassing to look at them and tell, wow, Karman Corp is a really good team. They looked awful for the past 2 weeks.
I haven't seen the matches because I've been so busy this week. I'm just taking a look at the stats right now. Dude, that's crazy. Scream and Nevera leave Liquid to join this new team, make it on their own, and they get shat on by Team Liquid. 13-5, 13-2. These stats are embarrassing.
See,
that
like
sucks.
I've had my differences with Liquid. You know, I say like Liquid. You know, I don't know what kind of squad they are, but they've definitely proved me wrong. Where they've shown this and they've destroyed Karman Corp. I mean, yes, Karman Corp is like, to be honest, is one of the more weaker teams. And then used to, like, we could talk about like BBL as an 0-3 team. You know, they're not really doing much there. But I'm saying like my biggest question is I don't know if they can mesh well. That was my biggest question mark with Liquid since they first iterated. Is it, can they mesh well? Is role issue going to be an issue? But seeing them now, they're 2-1, the number 3 seed right now in the conference. So it's really good to see them. And right now, Fnatic is the only undefeated team right now, which I'm not really surprised. VCT locking champions. Going 0-3, but it's just the EMEA is just there's a lot of, you can tell who's the good teams and you can tell who's the bad teams, but there's a lot of like in the middle. There's so much like room for switching it up. I mean, I could be wrong. Next week or this upcoming up week, Karma Corp could absolutely dominate. They can go they can win 13-0 and they could prove me wrong. But in my opinion, against against Liquid, if you can't even beat Liquid, where they're not, in my opinion, they're not even a top 3 team in the EMEA. I don't know what can you do. It's Karma Corp looks really embarrassing. I mean, again, Na'Vi looks really good. A little funny thing if you guys haven't watched, if you watch CNET pick Yoru. By the way, he didn't mean that. He accidentally picked Yoru. He didn't even mean to pick him.
Really?
So, he didn't even mean to pick him, and he top fragged with 20 kills. So just to put in perspective how dominant this man is.
Man, also just goes to show how bad BBL is, because they had to audible. They had to audible so many plays if he didn't intend to pick Yoru, right?
Yeah, it definitely shows BBL is one of those teams which, credit to BBL, they might have been like playing pretty bad lately, but like if you actually watch them play, every game has been super close. Against Karma Corp, they went to overtime both of in their 2-0 losses. Against Fnatic, they went to map 3. Against Na'Vi, they put up a fight against losing 13-10, 13-8. Like, in my opinion, I think BBL is a better team than Karma Corp, even though they lost, because they've actually been putting up a fight. Each series, they actually put up fights in those matches. But it's just, I don't know why they're going 0-3. In my opinion, they're a really good team. I've watched them and they look really good, but I don't know why they keep losing. Maybe it could be, they have a very tough scheduling. They have to go against Karma Corp, Na'Vi, and Fnatic as their first 3 games. It might be a little tough there, but I hope they bounce back, because this looks really bad. For a team that looks really good, pretty bad. And then Team Heretics, I don't even know them. They're kind of like wishy-washy over there also. They lose to football, but then they dominate against Karma Corp, but then they get dominated against Fnatic, which is no surprise. So, Heretics is one of those, big question marks also, but, let's see what happens next week. It should be a pretty good, for matches, let me pull it up real quick. We actually have really good matches this week. In my opinion, the match of the week is Liquid versus Fnatic. They're an old rivalry before the franchising. They all would go against head-to-head, and it will always be a really good matchup. So it would be nice to see them. And then another one, technically, Vitality is a French org. So Battle of the French, we have Team Vitality versus Karma Corp. We got to see. I feel like that's pretty, in my opinion, that's going to be a really good matchup going into it. If anybody's interested in watching, I feel like you guys should watch that matchup. But overall, EMEA is a big blunder of, who's good, who's bad, but you don't know who's in the middle. So, yeah, that's for my EMEA. And as we transition to the Pacific, in my opinion, I've been really enjoying Pacific. The Pacific region
I need to watch more Pacific. That shit looks crazy.
No, the Pacific looks so much fun to watch lately. So, it's kind of top-heavy right now, in my opinion, but it's been really fun to watch. So, right now, DRX and Gen G, they're tied for first place. They're both 3-0. Really dominant. Gen G has been a very sleeper team, even though they're 3-0. Feels like they're a very sleeper team. And if many of you don't know, PaperX finally acquired something. The Russian prodigy, who's been smurfing in the Challengers League in Japan. So he has been dominating, and PaperX has finally picked him up. And the Giga Chad on this man. They go against T1. No pushover team, by the way. One of the top teams in the Pacific. Very absolute Giga Chad. He goes into Pearl, subs in Bankai for him, drops a 300 ACS, then leaves and then doesn't say anything. Just a casual dominant. Goes into Pearl, drops 300 ACS, doesn't play map 2, and they still win. I know, Dom, you talked about 6-man roster not working. Do you think this is the first time ever a 6-man roster could work?
I don't know. It's hard to tell, because the interesting thing about this Paper Rex roster is how influential each individual player is. You have top high fraggers, Forsaken, Something, Jing. You have incredibly consistent players, Mindfreak, Divide. Bankai is also an incredibly good IGL. And the thing is, I don't know. I feel like it can work at this level week to week, because people don't have as much time to prep. There's not as many stakes as losing an individual match. So you can kind of default to practicing and playing around a general idea or concept, being like, okay, something, you play Jet on Pearl and you do this, this, and that. The only issue is that when you go into higher levels, playoffs, all this stuff, each match has something more to prove, which means that players, they're going to prep more for those matches, actually counter the transition time of the fundamentals and working together with your team. The smallest things, such as small interactions, how you work with your team, the communication needed, those start to play much more of a bigger factor. It can work at something like this because they did just absolutely stomp T1. You say Forsaken dropped 300 ACS. Forsaken had 400 ACS, 420 ACS. It's just so interesting because this roster is so fast, so dynamic, that something can just slot in here and they just move on them. I don't know how this will work going forward and going into things like playoffs and how that will work on the international stage. But I hope that something is here to stay. And if not, I hope that they're able to work them in seamlessly so they can keep having these dominant performances like that. One thing I really want to mention, though, is that something, I'm not sure his role distribution. I assume he's mainly duelist.
Yes.
But he took that Jet from Forsaken. Forsaken, famously Jet player, insanely good on Jet, has been that guy, the top fragger, is still doing it on other characters. But for them to put their trust into a player like Forsaken and say, hey, take my role, like take this. That is something, and it proves how good Forsaken is, not only in the view of like the public eye, but within their team and the respect they have for him. This team, Paper Rex, is looking so good. I'm excited to see where they go from that.
Yeah, no, I think Paper Rex looks like a very solid team. I think that's what I'm saying. Like the Pacific region as a whole has been so fun to watch. Just each team knowing what they're gonna do, they switch it up every single round. Each match feels like a playoff match in its own right. So it's going to be really fun to watch. And I think the Pacific, in my opinion, watching the Pacific League has been more fun to watch than the EMEA League because, EMEA is just stressful. The Pacific is just more fun and fun to watch. But speaking of which, they have their biggest matchup so far. It's going to be Paper X and DRX. We're going to see Fox versus something as the Jet versus Jet, the top fraggers, the monsters in them. We're gonna see them going head to head. This is gonna be DRX's first real matchup. I'm not pushing away Talon, Global Esports, and Zeta. They're very strong teams, but now they're going against Paper Rex with a now locked in something. So, I have no idea who's gonna win, but I would have to be leaning towards more DRX because I am very uncertain on if something's going to play or not, or if he's going to slot in. So I have DRX winning in that matchup. I would have to probably give them 2-1 in that matchup. I don't know if you have any opinions on how they're going to do on that game.
I will say I haven't been able to keep up as much these past couple of weeks with Valorant. Hopefully, as I finish up school, it'll be a lot easier going into the summer. But I will say one thing with DRX is that they've never shown that their floor is caving. They have a very strong base. That is a very nothing statement. DRX, right now in the league, is 6-0 on maps. They've played up against Zeta, Global, and Talon. Talon and Global haven't been doing as well. Zeta is still a very good roster. They've made it to the semifinals. They've done so much. They've proved that they're those guys, right? DRX has an incredibly strong floor. On the other hand, Paper X has an incredibly high ceiling. So it's going to depend. This is going to be an interesting matchup because of that dynamic of how well can DRX play. We know they have an incredibly high ceiling as well, but it's their floor is what makes them so good. Paper X is their ceiling that makes them so good. So if they're both playing on that high level, it's going to be a crazy matchup. This is a matchup to prove if Paper X can have that same floor as DRX. Where is their floor at? Because we don't know. We know if Jing and Forsaken and something and all these other guys are doing amazing things, they can get the moon and the stars. They've made it to finals before. But where is their floor in a week-to-week matchup against DRX, one of, if not the best teams in Pacific, in the world? This is why this match is so crazy. It's at 5 a.m. though. It's at 5 a.m. So I don't know if I'm going to watch it. Maybe I'll watch the highlights of it. I don't know. It's going to be such an interesting matchup, not only from like the stratting and counter stratting of it, because DRX is a very, execute heavy team. Paper X, also an execute heavy team, but a more aggressive, especially more on offense. We'll see how it kind of shakes out like that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting match. Yeah, I think that's my match of the week. That's an obvious choice. But that wraps it up for all the VCT recaps. We did all 3 regions, and let us know what you guys think. And so, of course, like every week so far, we've had question of the week, or question of the day now. So every region has had 2 weeks to play. In those 2 weeks, at least minimum 2 weeks, who do you think is the number 1 team out of those 3 regions? Do you think Loud isn't that still the number 1 team? Do you think it's Fnatic? Do you think it's DRX, Gen G? Who do you think is the number 1 team in the world, and why do you think that? Just a very early predictions. Everyone's 2 weeks in, and you gotta groove on who really is the good ones and who's the essentially the bad ones. So let me know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think?
Well, what I've seen so far, I would have to put Fnatic, as they finally got, without Alfier, their first 2 weeks they played with no Alfier, and they still managed to dominate, and they still managed to get their first 2 wins. And then with Alfier, they managed to slap around Heretics. So, in my opinion, I still think it's Fnatic. I think Fnatic is still the number 1 team. If not, I would think give it to Loud.
Interesting. I think, and I'm kind of viewing your question in a different light. It's like that age-old question, like aliens come down, and right, they're like, they're cracked at Valorant, right? The aliens are cracked at Valorant, and you have to pick 1 team to go up against them for a fate of the universe. Which team are you picking? I would say, despite how good Fnatic is, despite how good Loud is, I think I would have to go with DRX. Because DRX, they have all the pieces, right? They have insane consistency, 6-0 right now. They have their game plans, their stratting, immaculate. Some of the best players in the world. Mako, one of the, if not the best smoker in the world. I know there's some contention with that. Stacks, insane IGL, one of the most clutch players ever. He's insane, and with the addition of Foxy9, how he's kind of working in with that, this roster seems so good, and they're proving it by just being able to be so consistent and sweeping everybody. I think they might be one of the best players, one of the best teams in the world. In a 7-game series, we'd have to see, but I think 1 match, I might have to go with DRX.
The only reason I didn't pick DRX is the 2 teams that they went against are right now currently 0-3. So you could argue that their scheduling is pretty easy right now. They're going against an easier schedule. The only team right now that means Zeta Division, they're 2-1 right now, so they're really solid. But in my opinion, the reason I didn't pick it is because I haven't seen them really have a challenge. Because if you look at their next 2 weeks, they have to go against Paper X and Gen G. Those are their first real challenges. And in my opinion, they're only challenges. So if they can show that they can dominate and they can beat those teams, I can argue that they're one of the number 1 teams in the world. But,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, but, this is a very early predictions. We're only 2 weeks into the region, so we got to see. We still got a long season to go. So, but yeah, that's my thing. And that's my question of the week. Let us know what you guys think. Comment down below.
And next, let's get to our famous, worldwide famous segment. What's our segment?
We got EcoForce. So, are you ecoing? Are you saving in on your picks? Are you forcing, giving us your scorching hot takes? So, you know what, Dom? I'm gonna let you go first.
You're gonna let me go first. All right. I've been kind of light on takes this week, and this one I've been simmering on for a bit. So it's not a scorcher, but it's been simmering. It's been simmering the stew, letting the meat broil and like disintegrate into the broth kind of thing, stew like. And that is, Japan is on the rise. Japan is coming. They're coming for us. They're coming for our kids, our favorite teams. Because if you take a look at the Japan Challengers viewership rating right now, the peak viewers 160,000, hours watched 9 million hours watched of the Challengers Japan Split 1. So this is the same as the Japan Tier 2 scene, the North America Tier 2 scene. The reason why this is so important, 9 million hours watched, 160,000 peak viewers. You hop over to America, who has some of the most influential, Ludwig. They had Disguised Toast. We have these famous people also, showing off and saying, hey, watch these matches. They're trying their best to promote these. You have famous teams like FaZe, G2. The Guard has been on everyone's mind. And they're pulling 145,000, 4 million hours watched. People in Japan care about Valorant. North America cares about Valorant. But at the same time, we know how strong North America is as a region. Japan, on the opposite end, we don't really treat as a super region. I might make my own video on this another time, kind of diving more into this. But we don't really treat Japan as a super region. But I think give it a year or so, and they might just be that. Because take a look at a region like China in League of Legends. China never was considered one of the best regions. It was when it first started, when China started first participating, we had South Korea dominate when they first came in, right? Season 3, Faker came in, destroyed them. Actually, I think season 2 was the first time. That was when, that's another story. South Korea came in, dominated League of Legends. But then slowly over time, because of China's obsession with League of Legends and how big it was there, they slowly chipped away and became the dominant region. South Korea has kind of captured that back now, but China for a long time was considered the best region because of how many people there were that care about the game. This is a similar thing we might be able to see with Japan, because although they might not have, the same population, the whole funnel, esports funnel, they have people watching and wanting to play. People that are watching now that are maybe like, younger kids, they're going to watch and say, I want to be like this guy. I want to be like something. Because something was one of the first Japanese prospects to make it big, right? He's been playing in the Japanese tier 2 scene, tearing it up. I'm just saying, because of just how the viewership works and how people are influenced, the care that Japan gives Valorant will slowly, over time, build up this region that is going to become dominant. And we're going to see more prospects that are insanely cracked. People like Something. Something is just the first, prospect to come out of the Japanese Valorant scene. Although he's a Russian guy, he came from Japanese Valorant. There's going to be more people coming out, and we're going to see a Japanese dominating team or dominated region soon. Within like 2 years. I'm calling it now. That's my hot take. I've been simmering on it for a while because these numbers have been out there for a while, but it's been growing recently.
Yeah. I think it's been interesting because I feel like Japan has never been really one of the best regions when it comes to any esports. I mean, you look at League of Legends, they're not really the best. They've never really made a statement or a name for themselves in, for example, League. If we make other games like, I don't know, Rainbow Six or CSGO,
they have Street Fighter. They have like fighting games.
Yeah, fighting games. I feel like that's the only spot where they have been dominant in, or like really been really good. Because I think a Japanese player recently won the Smash Summit, if I'm not mistaken. So,
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it was a Japanese player. It was one.
There's a lot of really good Japanese Smash players. Either way, fighting games is really big in Japan, but not necessarily team games or specifically Valorant. Any sort of like League of Legends Valorant isn't super big there.
So a lot of team oriented games are not really popular, but I feel like now they're gonna start in the rise. I feel like Japan is slowly in the rise of it, so it's gonna be interesting to see. NA League is not the best, as we can see from now on, but at least in Valorant, that's the first. We're finally, putting a name for ourselves in NA. But it's definitely interesting. I'm kind of excited to see how Japan flourishes as we go up. But I have an eco. I'm taking a little safe. Mario movie Giga Chad. I don't know if you guys have watched the new Mario movie, but for some reason, before it came out, critics were giving it, 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. It wasn't that good. Everyone was kind of skeptical. People started watching it. Audience started watching it. It has, as of right now, as this recording, a 98% audience retention rate. What does this mean? Never listen to critics. Critics are the single worst things when it comes to movies, and this was the absolute Giga Chad thing. Because when, Mario movie first came out, you had Jack Black playing Bowser. You had Keegan-Michael Peele playing Toad.
Yeah.
You had these, and then you had Chris Pratt. It was like, why Chris Pratt as Mario? Everyone was shitting on him, roasting him about it. And it turns out I think we owe Chris Pratt an apology. We owe Chris Pratt an apology because end of the day, movie was great. It has the highest animated. It has the highest earnings of an animated film ever in a weekend. So I say we owe Chris Pratt an apology for roasting his ass the entire time. And shout out to the entire Mario movie, whoever, I don't know which studio made the Mario movie, but shout out to them because they're Giga Chads and they prove critics wrong. And so my force of the week is Riot's big brain when it comes to their skin bundle. So if none of you have realized, they came out with I forgot the name of it. It's
the night market or
night market. So it's called Night Market Skin. Literally CS:GO skins. The Vandal is literally an AK-47 skin. The Glock is literally the pistol, the classic, is literally a Glock skin. Oh, hit my mic. And then the Marshall is literally a Scout skin. So very smart of them. As CS2 came out, they're like, oh, we got this right in our pockets. Boom, they throw it out, and they're like, you want CS2? We have CS2 here. Why do you need to move? Stay with us. So, big brain, and it's scorching because that's essentially a power move. They stiff-armed Valve with that. So, shout out to Riot because that's a me personally as if I was Valve, me personally, I wouldn't take that. I would say something, me personally. But, that's just me. But, that's my force of the week. And shout out to Riot for that.
I actually have... originally I was only going to have one eco. I'm going to have a bit of a second force up here. Call on Audible. And that's because I want to talk about the Valorant Game Changers. In the news recently, the Valorant Game Changers has had a lot more attention. Things like Disguised Toast's team, picking them up, dropping them all, which I thought was kind of funny. Something like Moist Moguls picking up CLG Red as CLG recently folded, becoming Moist Moguls Red. You have the absolute powerhouse that looks like Xset, picking up teams, Queen Bobsta. They got Katsumi. These are ex-Cloud9 players. Then you also have Shopify. Shopify has been that team for a while. They've been around the 2-3 region. Recently, I feel like would be number one had it not be for version 1 with having Mel, probably the best Game Changers player in North America of all time. I'd say I know there's some EMEA Chads out there, but I feel like Mel, Fluorescent, and the rest of the version 1 squad has been looking crazy. The matches going on right now are just so fun to watch, right? And I think that the Game Changers as a whole and the whole circuit that they have is going to get a lot more attention moving forward. Not only because the North America leagues, the America leagues, the international leagues, and the tier 2 leagues are all kind of going to go on pause near the end of the year to focus on this Game Changer stuff, right? Goddamn.
Oh wow, this is a really scorcher.
Yeah, dude, I'm choking because it's so spicy. It's so spicy. And I'm going to say this. I think by the end of the year, Game Changers is going to assert itself as the next Premier League, not necessarily as, 1, 2, 3 of the priority of International League, Tier 2, Game Changers. It's going to be on par with the rest of Tier 2. Not just in its caliber of play, but with its prestige. Because players like Mel, not only is she one of, if not the best player in Game Changers circuit right now, she's also on the desk constantly for an analyst position throughout all of the VCT. She is getting her name out there. She's making it big. She is acting as a sort of Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan ambassador for this sort of league. And I think it's going to grow and become this next big thing. I think I'm so high on this because it's just so good. It's so fun to watch. That's all I got. Next week, we want to have a guest. I'm going to ask Fluorescent to come on and talk about her experience a little bit. I think this could be a great way to get more involved in the Game Changers.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the Game Changers a little bit too, and surprisingly, I've been having a lot of fun watching with the Game Changer scenes. Last year I was never really involved in the Game Changer scene. I never really watched any of it, so I committed this year. I was like, you know what, this year I really want to try to get into the Game Changer scene. I want to see what the hype is about. So I've been watching it, and I have not been disappointed at all. I've been really, I really like how Moist Moguls, they kind of have been proving themselves, unfortunately due to the CLG going under, unfortunately, these teams having to play and Ludwig being the Chad he is. Shout out to Ludwig for essentially sponsoring them until they find a new home, or at least this tournament. So it's been really interesting, and I've been watching a lot of V1, and in my opinion, right now, Fluorescent is the best player in Game Changers. She's good. She is disgusting. She is like, in my opinion, I feel like she can be put on a tier 2 VCL team if she wanted to. She could hang, which in my opinion, it is insane watching her play. I am mesmerized by how well she can play, because she plays like she does not give a fuck. She does not care, and she walks into the server knowing she is the best player in the world and best player in Game Changers, and it's amazing to watch. I know we have we're not gonna see V1 till Thursday, so as of this recording, until tomorrow. But yeah, I can't stop watching her play, because she is amazing. One of the best players I've ever seen in Game Changers. But
version Fluorescent feels like, I'm not sure if you keep up with, like, to be fair, I don't even keep up with a lot of like college basketball stuff, but it feels like a lot of the hype around Caitlin Clark, where like you see these stat lines and you're like, okay, you see these plays. The way she plays is so different. It's so aggressive. It's so fun. Just bare and simple. She's been doing this for a long time too. I'm pretty sure she's been a top player since like 15. I hope to see her as one of the first people to make it onto a main franchising team. A main tier 2 team. I'm going to stop talking now. I was going to keep coughing. Close this out, Ennis.
Yeah. So thank you for watching. For the competitive Valorant updates, follow us on the Weekly Defuse on Twitter. Give us a subscription on YouTube at Weekly Defuse. Thanks for watching in every episode. Make sure to like and comment and let us know what you guys want us to talk about. So our next episode will be live on Friday, April 21st. Until then, hope you have a wonderful day. Love you guys.
See ya.
Bye-bye.